Ich grüße euch herzlich willkommen heute mit einer neuen Reaktion zu Great Book of Grudges, The Possible Tzeentch and Kislev Editions for Patch 4.2. Und ja, einfach mal eine kleine Spekulation, was wir jetzt noch bekommen würden für Kislev oder Tzeentch. Warum mache ich jetzt heute eine Reaktion auf ihn? Das ist ganz einfach. Ich habe in der Vergangenheit schon Videos dazu gemacht, was wir bekommen können. Ja, da müsste ich einfach nur auf meinem Kanal gehen und Shadow of Tzeentch eingeben. Da seht ihr dann doch einige Videos dazu. Und deswegen habe ich mir jetzt einfach mal gedacht, machen wir jetzt einfach mal drauf eine Reaktion auf einen anderen YouTuber. Und dann kann ich auch dazu ein bisschen was vergleichen. Ich kann dazu ein bisschen was ergänzen oder auch sagen. Und ich würde sagen, let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to have a little bit of fun. You see, we know that Shadows of Change is going to get a rather hefty update, with all the factions involved getting some brand new units, or lord choices, hero choices, and even some legendary heroes.
Ja, ich frage mich immer noch, ob dieser ganze Content hier 25 Euro wert sein wird. Das könnt ihr gerne mal schreiben in die Kommentare.
I must say, the sheer amount of stuff that's actually coming in did take me by surprise. We already know the stuff that's coming for Grand Cafe, but we don't know about the stuff that's coming for Tzeentch and Kislev. So why not make a prediction? We've done this in the past, but we didn't know what to expect in terms of numbers. So now, I think it's probably time to revisit that video, have a little bit of fun, and just look at things kind of logically and in line with what we can expect. Obviously, it's quite important to note that units do count as everything, so that would be infantry, cavalry, monsters, artillery pieces, all that usual type of stuff. So, yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So we'll start with Tzeentch. So, when it came to Tzeentch, we already had a legendary hero and we had 3 new units.
Ja, ist mal ein bisschen komisch hier vom Übersetzer, dass da Zinn steht, ja, aber es ist halt so von YouTube, dass er daneben halt versucht, die Sprache zu übersetzen.
The Zangors, the Cockatrice, and the Mutilated Vortex Beast. That means what's missing so far
Nymphensittiche fehlen übrigens, glaube ich, auch noch. Ja.
is a generic lord, a generic
Ach nee, die kamen beim letzten Mal dazu, ne? Ja, stimmt, die kamen ja beim letzten Mal dazu. Nee, wieder vergessen.
hero, and then 2 missing units. As far as I've seen from the actual blog, there's no hints towards the Tzeentchian stuff, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah, I think we can already more or less see what we're missing here. So in terms of missing generic Lord and Hero options, what we're actually missing is the generic Chaos Lord of Tzeentch.
Ja, dazu hat er schon mal was gesagt, beziehungsweise schon mal ein Video zu gemacht, dass die Helden oder auch Champions, ja, also egal ob jetzt Kommandant oder Held, dass die halt einfach fehlen für Tzeentch, weil diese Nahkampf-Lords, die waren auch ziemlich gut für Tzeentch. Und die würden auf jeden Fall fehlen und ich denke mal, die würden dann auch gleichzeitig spielbar werden für die Chaoskrieger.
And finally, the Exalted Hero of Tzeentch. These are the melee variants. Now, you might be thinking, why would these be added in when really this is a spellcaster-focused faction? And the fact is, even on the tabletop, the melee versions were quite popular. It'd be really cool if Creative Assembly decided to add them in with their proper weapons, so giving them a halberd, and, you know, the usual stuff. So this would be a chariot mount, a horse mount, and a Disc of Tzeentch would be amazing, as that would allow people to relive their old tabletop armies. Naturally, with the Lord, if you decided to ascend to Demon Princehood, you would then get a Law of Magic, because that's
Genau, das übliche Zeug daneben. Er könnte dann auch aufsteigen zum Dämonenprinzen.
what makes sense there. But other than that, I mean,
Und hier und da vielleicht ein paar kleine Zaubersprüche.
it's pretty simple, and I think that that's what people are going to like. This would also benefit you if you decide to play one of the Warriors of Chaos factions that has access to Tzeentchian units. So again, keeping on themes and helping multiple factions, which, yeah, I mean, why not, right? There could be a possibility that they went with a different type of hero, which would be the Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch.
Ein Exalted Flamer auf Tzeentch, das wäre natürlich auch noch eine Heldenvariante. Halte ich jetzt allerdings nicht so viel davon, weil es gibt schon 2 Varianten von diesen Flamern, ja, und als Helden, weiß ich nicht, muss ich den jetzt nicht unbedingt haben. Also, aber das könnt ihr natürlich gerne anders sehen, ja.
Named to a Pyrocaster, because obviously the Exalted Flamer already exists as a unit. It's one of these weird things where Creative Assembly weren't really going through the proper names. But I feel like if they do that, it'll probably be an FLC down the line just as a way to, hype stuff up in the future, or just finally finish off the Tzeentch roster. Personally, I would prefer the melee versions of stuff, mostly because, again, it helps the Warriors of Chaos, you can kind of get that done, and be sorted from there. Alright, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but it was in the art book, and Creative Assembly seemed to be very keen on flying mounts for some reason in this patch, so what about the Chimera? So, the Chimera is a big flying beastie, it's supposed to be stronger than the Manticore.
Die Chimära könnte ich mir sehr gut vorstellen für Tzeentch und also gleichzeitig dann auch für Chaoskrieger.
It could be a single entity monster, so flying very fast, doing a lot more damage
Ja, das Ding ist ein bisschen besser als ein Manticore, da stimme ich ihm zu.
than a standard Manticore, and it could also be used as a mount for the Lord and Hero options for the Mortal Base Lords, which means that you could use them in the Warriors of Chaos roster and the Tzeentchian roster also. I kind of see this happening. I don't know why.
Ja, das ist ja auch immer das, was viele vergessen haben, dass die Einheiten dann auch gleichzeitig, zumindest die meisten, dann auch verfügbar waren für die Chaoskrieger oder eben halt auch einige für Tzeentch, ja. Ich meine für die Tiermenschen, also für Chaoskrieger und für die Tiermenschen, wie zum Beispiel die Salengos, ja, die waren dann ja auch verfügbar für die Tiermenschen. Das fehlte aber alles im Shop. Das haben sie einfach nicht hingeschrieben, die haben einfach nur geschrieben, ja, das und das sind neue Einheiten und die bekommt ihr dazu. Aber sie haben nicht mal geschrieben, für welche Fraktion, ja. Naja.
Gravitating towards that. In a perfect world, we'd also get the Chimera sent off to the Beastmen so 3 factions can benefit. Yes, the Beastmen have been really lucky when it comes to the Shadows of Change release, but I mean, why not, right? It's something that you kind of want with them. Big flying beastie would always be nice just to add in a higher tier version of the Manticore, essentially. But yeah, I'm gravitating towards a flying thing. I honestly think that we're going to get a few flying things overall. I mean, we've got 2 for Cafe, 1 for Tzeentch would be kind of cool, and I think
Ja, Kaffee ist die falsche Übersetzung, mein Kartei.
we're going to get 1 for Kislev. Now, for the last unit, there's 2 things that could happen. Either we could get the Fireworm of Tzeentch, which is something...
Ja, so ein Feuerwurm, der wäre, denke ich, auch sehr geil für Tzeentch. Ich glaube, das ist so einer der... Nee, ist nicht. Oder wäre das einer der Favoriten? Ja, ich glaube, der Feuerwürmer und die Chimäre, das wäre so eines der Favoriten von Creative Assembly.
really big and impressive, which I imagine if CA are going to be going on an apology tour, this is something that they might consider. Essentially, this is a Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch. Like the Mutilef Vortex Beast and like the other Chaos Spawn, but it's...
Das ist eigentlich eine geendete Chaosbrut. Aber ist halt nicht mehr viel von übrig, ne? Ist halt total mutiert und total umgestaltet worden von Tzeentch.
It's large, it's good for range damage. This is a proper God Touch spawn, which would be absolutely amazing because we know that this falls part of the Warhammer Fantasy IP. It could even be made a little bit better with some bound spells and, a flaming attack which is fairly ranged, but it's mostly there to do damage physically, moving fairly quickly because it is avian. I would love this. I would absolutely love this. Keep in mind that there's not a lot of missing stuff which is actually unique, and it does look like they're going for missing unique stuff rather than unit variants. Now, the other option, which admittedly I would prefer, would be some really unique new form of aspiring champion for Tzeentch. Again, usable by the Warriors of Chaos and the Tzeentchian Monogod factions. And yes, it's not a unique unit per se because it's a bit of a reskin, but it would require some help from Games Workshop to design something new, especially as we never really had aspiring champions. I imagine that we will get something like Blight Kings and, Wrathmongers, Skull Reapers and all that down the line, maybe with an End Times focused DLC, but that can wait for Khorne and for Nurgle because they still have quite...
Ja, weiß ich nicht jetzt, was ich von dieser Idee halten soll. Strong like Doom Knights. Ich finde, da brauchen jetzt nichts irgendwie weiter hinzufügen oder verbessern.
a few things which is still missing. However, Tzeentch and Slaanesh never really had their aspiring champions, so it might be time to introduce them a little bit earlier as they wouldn't really fall under the End Times IP. Let's be honest, it would be kind of cool to just get some aspiring champion style units, some heavy elite troopers, which aren't the basic aspiring champions, some god-touched ones with a really unique look to them. So these ones would look very, very Tzeentchian. Give them halberds and shields, and there you go, all sorted. I think that would work really well. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd get something like this and the fireworm, but maybe they've got some plans later down the line. So something like this would be pretty decent, I think. Now, Creative Assembly could actually surprise us and finally introduce new demons, but since Games Workshop hasn't really introduced new demons since... Good Lord, when did Games Workshop last introduce new demons? It's been a...
Ja, das kann ich euch leider auch nicht selber beantworten, ja, wann Games Workshop das letzte Mal neue Dämonen eingefügt hat. Hätten sie es mal gemacht, dann hätten wir jetzt eine bessere Spekulation, ja, aber das ist schon sehr lange her.
While. Yeah, I don't think we're getting anything new. For some reason, Games Workshop have been kind of apprehensive about introducing new demons. Technically, we had some new stuff for Age of Sigmar, which is like the whole harp situation, but that's just more demonettes. It's not really a new demon. Those models are feeling fairly outdated too. It'll be nice to see an update from them from GW, but let's not get distracted. I think overall, getting the Melee Lord and Hero for Tzeentch would be quite useful for both the Monogods and the Standard. A Chimera in general is just super cool, and I imagine that designers would have a lot of fun with.
Ja, ich glaube auch, dass wir da einen Nahkampfhelden bekommen und einen Nahkampfkommandant für Tzeentch und dann wahrscheinlich noch so ein paar Flugviecher, ja, wie zum Beispiel jetzt hier diesen einen Feuerwurm oder die Chimera. Also das denke ich, das wird ebenfalls hinzukommen. Aber vielleicht habt ihr eine andere Meinung, ja, wie gesagt, schreibt es auch gerne in die Kommentare.
That because they'd have to animate for the heads and all that type of stuff. And then with the units, yeah, that works out quite well. It's one of these things where I'm trying to make sure that it's not too newer stuff, if you get what I mean. Because if we look towards like the Cafe Lion, that's going to be using a lot of the animations and the rig from the bog standard Griffin that we get with the Empire. And, well, yeah, the Moonbird is going to be using the animations from the Phoenixes. So everything that I've kind of stated would mostly use the same animations, especially since we already have Halberdier units. That's why I was going for the Aspiring Champions. The Chaos Lords already exist, they just need to have an asset swap, and then use some other unique animations that have been added in throughout, you know, Champions of Chaos, introduced the Disc of Tzeentch properly, and so on. So that kind of all makes sense to me. So yeah, I say I would be fairly content with this for Tzeentch, just to add in pretty much what's missing from the roster. Plus,
ja, ich hoffe, jetzt kommt er endlich mal zu Kislev.
Chimera mounts would be great anyway. Alright, so Kislev is going to be a
Ja, endlich. Meine Güte.
bit different because Kislev had a hero option being introduced. Those are the Hag Witches. They had 3 different units introduced already, which was the Akshina Ambushers, the Thing in the Woods, and the Incarnate Elemental of Beasts. So what they're missing so far is a legendary hero, a generic Lord option, and then 2 unique units. Now this one's going to be quite tough, same thing as what happens with Grand Cafe, mostly because, well, nobody has access to the Kislev Army Book, barring Games Workshop and Creative Assembly.
Ja, würde es ein neues Armeebuch geben für Kislev, dann wäre diese Spekulation jetzt hier ebenfalls einfacher, aber das gibt es leider noch nicht. Und das wird es auch so bald nicht geben. Da gab es, wie, war das ein Leak oder eine Ankündigung? Nee, das war auf der warhammercommunity.com Seite war ein Bericht über einen neuen, besser gesagt, über einen neuen alten Roman von Warhammer The Old World. Und da gab es einen Text, der hat bestätigt, dass Kislev erstmal noch eine Zeit lang nicht kommen wird. Ja.
It's a bit of a shame because
Mehr dazu morgen in den Warhammer Fantasy Gaming News, wisst ihr ja hier beim jeden Sonntag um 15 Uhr.
they've recently announced that Kislev is not coming anytime soon for the tabletop, and I really wanted to actually do a Kislev army. It's one of those things where, come on, you've seen the miniatures because you've seen the models, right? They're in the game, they look fantastic. I would love to have a hybrid force. Now there's things that we can already outright confirm. We know that the Lore of the Hags is coming because it was confirmed via the Total War Access email. Same thing with Catherine Sled, which was confirmed on the blog. Those are FLCs at the bottom, which is kind of odd considering that we won't be getting Hag Mothers because apparently they just don't exist. We have Hag Witches, but not Mums because Games Workshop, I guess. I think that's probably the
Ja, das war ja so das Ding, was schon angekündigt worden ist. Ja, das war der erste Dämpfer, dass wir keine Hexen Kommandantinnen bekommen werden für Kislev. Das war wahrscheinlich von Games Workshop so nicht beabsichtigt, ja, dass da irgendwie jetzt mal eine Hexenmutter kommt als Kommandantin. Muss ich aber auch lore-technisch dazu sagen, dass das nicht passen würde, weil es gibt ja auch viele, die mögen sowas in Kislev nicht. Ich sage nur zum Beispiel Kostaltin, ja, die orthodoxe Kirche, die ist da halt sehr streng. Und wenn es da sowas da dann irgendwie als Kommandantinnen geben würde, das würde irgendwie nicht so passen. Ja, auf der einen Seite hassen sie diese ganze heretische Piep. Ja, und dann auf der anderen Seite will man eben halt Kommandantinnen von denen. Also es wäre auch irgendwie ziemlich unglaubwürdig, ja. Also und sehr strange.
The best way to go. It's probably Games Workshop saying it, as really all you needed to do was just an asset swap and that's it. That's fine though, because we do have a really good mod which introduces hag mothers, so yeah, we're sorted. The legendary hero we pretty much already know because there's been leaks left, right, and center, and that is the Golden Knight. So this is actually quite interesting because obviously Kislev is.
Ja, der Goldene Ritter oder die Goldene Ritterin wurde ja schon bestätigt. Da freue ich mich auf jeden Fall schon mal drauf.
Is lacking on a little bit of melee power, so seeing a character being introduced, you know, which is going to be uprun and personal. The Golden Knight we know next to nothing about. What we do know is that she's taken over her father's position, as this seems to be a hereditary thing, and she's got a very nice looking horse. It's something else that was basically content. If you look in the art book, the Warhammer 31, her horse was there. It's something that I'm going to be referencing quite a few times. So yeah, I imagine that she'll have access to a horse, she'll have access to a bear mount, and she'll have a different amount of weapons, I guess, depending on what she rides. So on a horse, she'll have a lance. I don't know if bears... Do bear riders have lances? Yeah, I think they do. So probably on that there, but then on foot, if we actually get her on foot, she'd have a sword and board.
Ja, aktuell haben die Bärenreiter ja keine Lanzen, aber ich habe auch schon bei Kislev Bärenreiter gesehen mit Lanzen, ja. Aber ich glaube, das war die Mod für Total Warhammer 2 damals, die Kislev-Mod.
A lot of people have been waiting for this character, and it's about time that Kislev got a proper legendary hero. Yes, we do have the vampire, but she's a vampire, right? I'm talking about a proper mortal.
Ja, mit der Vampirin meint er jetzt, aus Tankia wollte ich gerade sagen, nein, Ulrika.
Who could actually get up front and personal and do some damage.
Aber Ulrika ist eigentlich nicht speziell für eine Fraktion als legendäre Heldin gedacht, sondern die ist halt eher so ein hybrider legendärer Held für entweder Imperium oder Kislev, ja, also als zusätzliche Ergänzung.
Alright, this is where things get a little bit difficult. You see, no hag mothers is a bit of a surprise, to be honest. Mostly because, well, this is a hag kind of focused DLC, Ungles and stuff like that, but apparently Ungles are just not happening yet. Maybe in the future, but it's one of those gray areas. So, there's only two things I can actually think of. The Druzina is something, but that was technically a hero back in 6th edition. Mind you, there were no proper, like, things in 6th edition. It was just that weird supplement. But it would be a hybrid character. You know, it's something that you've seen in Mordheim too. So, hand weapon, probably a pistol, mounted on a horse, mounted on a bear. There you go. Something like that could actually fit quite well, as the Druzina were both Ungles.
Ja, die sehen irgendwie aus wie so eine Art Kommissar oder Hexenjäger oder so. Ne? Also, das jetzt hier soll eine Heldenvariante darstellen.
And Gospodars, so you can have a little bit more of an Ungle feel to them, and kind of represent the Ungles without showing the Ungles. Now, you might be wondering why this when we already have a Boyar. Well, the Boyar itself is very focused on melee combat. It's got a few buffs here and there, but it's frontline, right? The Druzina could kind of work as a skirmish-focusing character. Maybe give it a little bit of buffs and stuff like that. It's kind of like what we have with Grand Cafe now, right? We've got the Magistrate, and then we also have the Celestial General. So there's nothing really saying that you can't have two melee-focused characters, with one being more focused on something else. Skirmish combat would work quite well, as it also fits in the theme with the Ekshina ambushes situation. I think something like that would work out quite well, and I don't know. I'm going through this because this is the only thing that kind of calls out to me. Now, in theory, they...
Ja, weiß ich jetzt nicht. Ist wahrscheinlich jetzt nicht die beste Idee gewesen, aber könnte ja sein, ja, dass sowas hinzukommt.
Could come up with something totally left field and surprise us, or even just bring in a Patriarch Lord. But I feel like anything to do with the...
Ein Patriarchenlord. Also ein Patriarchenkommandant. Das wäre jetzt allerdings für Ostankia dann natürlich sehr von Nachteil. Ja, weil ein Patriarchenlord würde sich niemals solchen Armeen anschließen, die Ostankia da hat. Mit ihren Akshina Armbrustschützen und mit den Spinnen und mit den ganzen anderen Monstern. Ja, da würde kein Patriarchenlord zu passen, aber allgemein, ja, natürlich für die anderen drei Kislev-Fraktionen, da würde das schon eher Sinn machen, ja. Aber Ostankia würde dann auf jeden Fall kommandantenmäßig leer ausgehen. Aber das wird wahrscheinlich sowieso passieren, weil es wird ja keine Hexenkommandantinnen geben.
Religion
Aber sie bekommen wahrscheinlich ihre eigene Magielehre endlich.
in Kislev is probably best served in a future DLC.
Also die Heldinnen.
As I do think that Kislev will get at least one more DLC in the future. It just kind of makes sense, especially for a very hyped up faction that we know has a complete army book. It's just we can't see it yet. And yes, I've said that twice now because I really, really am disappointed that we're going to have to wait to be able to play Kislev on the tabletop. My heart. But you never know. Alright, so we have 2 missing units here because we know that they're getting 5. I really think that we're going to get something kind of monstrous. We don't really have a lot of monstrous stuff for Kislev, but it does kind of make sense. In a perfect world, it would be something like a frost fiend, which has been historically described as a giant frost bat or something. I don't know if they'd go against the bats and make it an owl, but yeah, I don't know. Something like that just kind of makes a lot of sense to me, having a big flying entity creature, as Kislev's kind of lacking on the flying stuff at the moment. Now, not every faction does need a flying unit. This is something that needs to be stated very heavily.
Ja, weiß ich nicht so recht. Ein fliegendes Monster, also eine fliegende Monstereinheit für Kislev. Wüsste ich jetzt nicht, was da irgendwie hinzukommen sollte. Ja, vielleicht so ein Ding hier. Wäre natürlich eine Möglichkeit, aber ja gut, Kislev hat jetzt keine Flugeinheiten. Muss jetzt jede Fraktion eine Flugeinheit haben? Schreibt's gerne in die Kommentare, wenn ihr das wollt.
But it just kind of makes sense to have, eyes in the sky situation, right? Now, they could do something totally left field and do like some sort of frost dragon, as we know that frost dragons do exist in the lore. However, there've been no proper illustrations or descriptions of it, so I don't know, man. For all we know, it could just be a non-flying dragon or something. Which, does it count as a dragon? I don't know. Personally, big flying creature would be the biggest thing for me. I would love to see like a giant frost owl or something. It would be kind of cool. But there definitely needs to be something more flashy and looking a little bit more, Kislevite. I know I'm trying to make my peace with the whole thing in the woods situation and the incarnate elemental, but it would just be nice to see something more frozen with the frozen themed army, right? Alright, the last unit is a basic no-brainer. It's a fucking bear with a mounted machine gun. I'm kidding.
Ja, genau, ein Bär mit einer Gatling oben drauf. Nee, ist nur ein Scherz von ihm. Aber die Idee, die war nicht schlecht, ja.
Kidding. No, CA. I mean, it would be kind of funny, but no. I think that the bear stuff needs to stay more with a possible religious DLC. And we already had one bear unit. The Akshina ambushers are wearing bear skins. So that's enough for one. Honestly, it's quite tough to say with regards to Kislev. I mean, someone pointed out very recently that the Corsairs are actually tier 2, so maybe we could actually see a tier 1 unit being introduced, maybe with additional hand weapons and sword and board or spears. Variants, I imagine, don't count as unique units, they just count as variants. It could be a nice way to introduce some units that aren't actually hybrid, because we have a lot of hybrid stuff.
Ja, was er jetzt halt meint, ist einige Einheiten nicht mehr hybrid zu machen, sondern als Nahkampfeinheiten. Ja, vielleicht meint er jetzt ein paar Corsairs oder so. Also ein paar Standardeinheiten meint er. Ja, kann man als Variante zusätzlich hinzufügen. Er drückt dann allerdings wieder den Preis runter, ne? Und ich meine, 25 Euro für den Inhalt bin ich immer noch ein bisschen skeptisch.
Which fits with the theme of Kislev, but it would also be nice to kind of get something a little bit different. I mean, in the perfect world, these would be Ungles, and we'd have them on horseback too, but it seems like Games Workshop, I think, is Games Workshop. It could just be CA not seeing the point of them, but yeah. So maybe a tier 1 unit? I think that's pretty much all that's there. Now, I could be very wrong, but since someone pointed out that they're missing tier 1 units, that's all I've been thinking about. It wouldn't be the most exciting thing, though, so maybe they want to do some sort of Leshy. We already kind of have that with the Incarnate Elemental, but like a smaller variant, a little bit visually distinct. Monstrous infantry style, so they'd be coming in groups of, 16 on Ultra? The idea is just, keeping to the theme of Mother Ostankya. Again, this is why I'm pretty disappointed that we're not going to be getting any sort of
Ja, sicher, sowas könnte ich mir jetzt eher schon vorstellen für Mutter aus Tankia.
Ungols, because, yeah, they revere the hag mothers and stuff, right? It's a bit of an odd thing. Again, Kislev, really tough to think about. We don't know exactly where we stand with Kislev, who is still active, who isn't active, and so on. I really wish that the army book was out already so we could actually be able to talk about stuff properly, but until Games Workshop decide to release it, both myself and you guys are kind of left in the dark, which, yeah, I mean, either way,
Ja, für Kislev ist halt schwierig zu spekulieren, weil es dafür, wie gesagt, kein offizielles Armeebuch gab. Beziehungsweise es gibt ein Armeebuch, ja, aber es ist schon alt. Aber ein neues gibt es leider noch nicht. Ja, das dauert leider noch ein bisschen.
A melee-focused skirmishing lord I would like. Golden Knight would be pretty damn cool. And pretty much anything else would just be nice. As long as it's not a freaking bear, I'll be happy. It could literally
Ja, es könnte wieder ein riesiger Bär sein für Kislev, aber sowas haben wir ja eigentlich schon mit dem Elementarbären. Also sehe ich da jetzt irgendwie wenig Sinn.
be anything else. Just
Ja, ein Bär auf dem Dampfpanzer. Nee, ich denke, es wird kein Bär auf dem Dampfpanzer, sondern es wird auch kein Eisbär mit einer Gatling.
too much bears so far, right? There's way too many bears in Kislev, and it feels a little bit overdone. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. It's something very different, I just kind of wanted to redo the video and talk about this, giving my own personal expectations now that we've had 24 hours to think about it and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Time will tell, but the cafe stuff is definitely very, very cool, so I'm fairly excited to see what can happen here. It's all a matter of time and the effort. I do hope that Creative Assembly are also thinking about future stuff too, mostly unit variants. Finally give the Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch the other style of weaponry, because you might as well at this point. The armor exists, the rigs and animation exists. It wouldn't really cost too much. From personal experience, it's literally just going into the DB files and changing a few things around. It would just be nice to have the options rather than not have the options. The mods do exist for that, but it would be nice to get that officially so the modders can focus on, making some new awesome stuff rather than just making unit variants, right?
Ja, mehr Werkzeuge für die Modder ist immer gut.
Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. This video should come out on time, I hope. But yeah, have a good day.
Ja, ich wünsche euch auch noch einen schönen Tag. Und lasst auch gerne ein Abo bei Great Book of Grudges. Der macht immer gute Videos. Damit verabschiede ich mich auch. Und dann sehen wir uns wieder im nächsten Video oder im Livestream.